Welcome, everyone, to a very special week with our friend, Jim Carroll. We are going to have fun talking about memory. It'll be a little zany, I'm sure. Jim is a good friend of ours. He is the author of a new book, Ultimate Memory Magic, which is phenomenal. I wrote the forward to the book. He and I also did a course together on Amen University, Jim Carroll's Memory Master Course. You want a better memory? Read this book, take the course. We're going to talk about Jim's story, which I just dearly love. Jim also has been on national television, including The Tonight Show, The Ellen Show, The Today Show, Howard Stern. He also has held 3 Guinness World Records and has become a regular speaker at many prestigious places like MIT's McGovern Institute for Brain Research. In 2016, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph Dunford, invited Jim to host the chairman's holiday tour to Afghanistan, Qatar, Turkey, Ireland, and Germany. That's actually where I met Jim. So funny story. Scarlett Johansson was there, and somebody I'd thought about once or twice
just
in
once
my
or
life.
Twice.
And I got to meet her.
And I get a picture. You text me a picture of you and Scarlett. I'm like, what is going on?
But I told Tana afterwards, I'm like, it was really cool meeting Scarlett, but you have to know about my new friend, Jim
He's
Carroll.
like, that wasn't the best part. And I'm like, do I want to know about the best part if that wasn't the best part?
So welcome, Jim, to the Brain Warriors Way podcast.
Yes. Welcome, Jim. This is fun.
Good seeing you guys again. You look great.
Thank you. So do you. Thank you.
So let's start at the beginning. Because, now you're an author, you're a memory athlete, you're known around the world. But you really started not doing well in high school. Actually, you were bullied because of your size. It's funny, I was too. He's big, I'm not. And then you worked in a steel mill. So how did someone from a steel mill transform himself into really a world-renowned celebrity? How did that happen?
So let me clarify I'm confused what you mean by that. You mean someone is from a steel mill who wasn't required to use his memory very much? I mean, I don't know what you mean by that.
I like the story of how that happened.
Okay. I just want to make sure people working in steel mills don't go, what does he mean by that?
I'm always hurting somebody's feelings.
I'm always having to clean up behind you.
We had to use our head at the steel mill, but in a different way. It was, I worked at the Bethlehem Steel, just like the Billy Joe song, living here in Allentown. It reminds me of my life back then. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was fun. I got pushed around a little bit when I was in high school. And my first couple weeks at the steel mill, I got pushed around again until I took matters into my own hands. And things worked out. Yeah, seriously. I mean, I had such a blast down there afterwards. But unfortunately, I got laid off. I lost my job. And when I got laid off, my wife was pregnant with our second child. And I didn't know what to do. I'm like, wow, the only skill I have is crane operator working in a steel mill, and I can do a couple card tricks. So I took my wife's Avon account, went door to door selling her Avon because she was 8 months pregnant. And could you imagine me knocking on your door? Hey, you want to buy some Avon? Look what I look like.
I'm not answering the door.
I look like I should be in the WWE, not an Avon sales rep. But it worked out. I mean, I don't know if the women felt sorry for me or they liked my card tricks. I became the biggest selling Avon guy, and they hired me to do a show.
Were you the biggest selling Avon guy or the only selling Avon guy?
Probably the only guy. I don't remember seeing any other guys. Yeah. And then they hired me to do a show, and they had these big screens set up on the side of the stage, and I would do card tricks, and it would show up on a stage. And then here I am, 5,000 shows later. I made that a career doing card tricks and traveled around the country performing at colleges. And then all the way up to about 1990, I had a dream of a daily number. It was just a dream. And as a joke, it started off as a joke. I told people, hey, play this number December 22nd and you'll win. All right. And I did that from November 8th all the way to December 21st, probably about 31 different shows I had. And believe it or not, December 22nd, the number came up 222, just like in the dream. So now that launched me as the psychic madman. I'm neither psychic nor a madman. The madman was because of working at the steel mill, and the psychic because everybody thought, hey, I predicted a lottery. Hey, this is actually the 30th anniversary of that. 2020,
That's
December
so funny.
22nd, 2020. I'm going to try to really hype this up this year. Maybe do another prediction. I don't know. So that was great too. So now I'm going around the country. Hey, he's the psychic madman, and still no memory in sight. I didn't do any of the memory work. I'm still basically a steel worker doing magic tricks and putting my hand in bear traps and bending 60 penny nails and doing these feats of strength and everything. And then what had happened was about 49 years old, I had these pains in my chest. I'm like, oh, what the heck is this? Gas? What's going on here? I went to the doctor. They sent me to a cardiologist, and they told me I had cardiomyopathy. And I'm like, what the heck is that? He goes, you got the heartbeat of a 93-year-old man. I'm like, well, any more good news? He goes, yeah, you have a enlarged heart. And he actually said super enlarged heart. So I'm like, wow, that's special. I have a super big heart. You know? He goes, no, this is serious. So I'm like, I went home, changed my diet. First thing I did, no more Philly cheesesteaks and 40 hot dogs a week, a box of donuts every day. I mean, I really packed it in, guys. And then I started doing this exercise bike. And I'm like, boy, this is boring. But I know I had to do this. I had to discipline myself to stay on this bike. So I took out my deck of cards and I would look through them and try to count and stack, put stacks together that I could make it easy to remember the cards. And then after a couple of days of doing that, I thought, I'm not going to get off this bike until I could memorize this whole deck. I was on the bike that day for about 2 hours and 25 minutes.
So you basically taught yourself to count cards?
Yes, I taught myself.
But what
and
people...
I had to do something to keep from being bored, not knowing it was going to turn into what it did today. So what started as 2.5 hours on the bike got down to 2 hours to an hour and a half to an hour. I was memorizing the cards in less than an hour. So now I'm like, well, geez, I have to stay on the bike for at least an hour. So I threw something else in. I started throwing in pi, digits of pi. I wouldn't get off the bike until I could memorize the whole deck and then memorize 100 digits of pi. And then before you know it, the cards got down to 2 minutes. And the pi, it was insane what I was going through and what I was experiencing. All the while, as Doc knows, it was doing something to my brain, exercising my brain. And something was happening with the energy. I felt energized. Even like now, I can feel the energy coming in me from talking about it. So I started memorizing 100 digits of pi every day, 3, 1, 4, 5, 9, 2, 6, 5, 8, 5, 8, 9, 7, 9, 3, 2, 3, 8, 4, 6. Notice how I go 2, 3. It's almost like speaking Mandarin with English. There's tones involved with the memory. I created all these systems, which we ended up calling mental matrix, thanks to Daniel. I mean, that was your idea to call it mental matrix, I believe. And that's kind of how it all started, and it energized me. And to make a long story short about that, probably around 10 years of doing that, I found out my enlarged heart was normal after that.
Wow.
And I no longer have cardiomyopathy. So that's really freaky. I don't know what that is all about.
Yeah,
I'm not a doctor.
crazy.
So it's very important. And Jim, I want you to tell our listeners and our viewers some of the memory things you can do. But it was training your mind while you were exercising that really ended up giving you superhuman abilities. So one of the things I know, if you have an audience of 2,000 people, you actually pass out 2,000 tickets with a 12-digit number on it. And what is it? They tell you.
Don't even tell me. You don't have a ticket on you, I hope. Do you? That would be funny if you had.
No, but I remember testing you on this, and he knew every single one of them when I would pull it out.
Oh, no, it's crazy. So tell us about some of the they're not tricks. The memory abilities you demonstrate in front of audiences.
Yeah, but one thing, I know we're going to get people writing in wanting to know how to count cards. So just right off the bat, we're not going to
take our
teach you how to
memory
count cards.
master course if you want to learn how to
it's
count
actually
cards.
in the course.
Oh,
it
dear
actually is in the
Lord.
memory master.
We're going to get so in trouble. We're not going to be able to go back to Vegas to speak anymore.
You don't like Vegas anyway.
I don't like Vegas, but
I like Vegas.
But that's how it started off, as just to keep from being bored. And then I started developing systems to make it easier. I developed anchor systems and everything stuck. See, what happens with memory is the more you memorize things, the easier it is to link things and stick things to that original list. And the original list started as a bunch of celebrities, all right, that were in People magazine at the time when I developed the list. So like I would put Denzel Washington at number 1, as we described, and it would be easy for me to remember that because I would think of Washington being the first president, then instantly Denzel Washington would be there. Or like Michael Jordan, I put at number 23 because he wore number 23 in his amazing, amazing career. So, and this is what I thought, if I could develop this anchor system, then it would be much, much easier to remember lists of other things. And like you guys had just mentioned, I wanted to make it entertaining. I didn't just want to memorize things. I wanted to make it entertaining. So I would put the movies that I memorized on tickets, and the tickets would number from 1 to 100. And somebody would say, "Hey, I have number 23." And then that movie would be The Natural, because Michael Jordan was number 23. And he reminds me of The Natural, Robert Redford, in that movie. He's the natural of basketball. So I would create all these movies to the celebrities. And then after that, I started putting everything else to them, like countries, like number 6 is Chris Rock on my list. All right. So the country I would put for Chris Rock would be Costa Rica. The state for Chris Rock would be Massachusetts, because Chris Rock, Plymouth Rock. So it just really all fit together. And I used it in an entertaining way. I didn't want to come out and bore people with memory, so I made it entertaining and made up those tickets like you guys were talking about. And now the tickets are up to 2,000. So
but the tickets also have a 12-digit number attached to them.
Yes.
So you will not only what will happen? They'll tell you the movie and you'll tell them the 12-digit number.
Exactly. You can either tell me the movie or your 3-digit ticket number, and then I tell you the 12-digit number attached to it. And it's really bizarre, but people love it, and it's entertaining. And it's
So I have a question, because I actually, after meeting you, I became really inspired by this, and I wanted to learn, and I did. I actually started doing this while I was exercising. I started memorizing the presidents forward, backward, and I'm like, well, that wasn't that hard. And then I memorized the states, and then not the states, the countries. I memorized where every state was and the capitals. Then I went to countries, and no, I did. But here's the thing. Here's my question for you. Am I really stupid, or am I normal? Because it really worked and it lasted. But when I stopped exercising that and stopped doing it, it sort of didn't stick anymore. Now, when I went back to doing it again, it all started coming back. But when I got busy and stopped doing it, it kind of didn't last for me. So is it something you have to work like a muscle?
It's a really, really good question. This is what my opinion is on that. See, when you memorize massive amounts of information like kids do in school, like doctors do in med school, half the stuff they don't remember because they don't need it for their specific jobs.
Right.
They just remember what they need for their job. So they have the ability to let that information deteriorate over the years, just like I do with my memory. I could remember anything I want, or I could let it just go.
Right.
And to remember it again, all you have to do is maybe review it once every 2-3 months.
Okay.
And if you review it about 3 or 4 times, it'll be there forever, and it becomes automatic.
So that makes sense to me.
All right. When we come back, we're going to spend the next 3 podcasts getting really practical on how you can have a better memory and a better life. Stay with us.
Welcome back. We're with our friend Jim Carroll, and we're having so much fun talking about Memory Magic, his new book. So, Jim, we were just talking about how to make this stick. So for those of us who this isn't our business, memory is not our business. You're in it all day. You do brain stuff all day. I do nutrition and stuff like that all day. So that stuff we know really well. But when you're doing something new, how do you make it last? How do you make it stick? How do we give our listeners the tips so that, because I know when I did it, we just talked about this in the last episode, it worked really well. And then I got really busy, stopped doing some of the tips, and then it started to disappear. And I noticed when I went back and started to work on it again, it came back. But what would you tell them? Like, so they don't feel bad when they don't remember it 4 months later or 6 months later. What do they need to do?
Okay, that's a good question, because even myself, I'm supposed to be the man with the world's greatest long-term memory, and my stuff will disappear if I don't practice it at least maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And I call it memitation.
That's
not
good.
Meditation, memitation. I'll sit on my couch like this, and I'll close my eyes. My wife will be sleeping. It's 11 o'clock at night. And say, well, you mentioned the presidents. Say, for example, I'll review the presidents in my head. I'll go, Washington. I don't talk out loud, obviously. They look crazy. I do it into myself. I go Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Adams, Jackson, Harrison, Tyler, Polk, Taylor, Fillmore, Pierce, Buchanan, and I'll do all of this, and then it's done. Then I'll go, well, let's do the 2-letter Scrabble words: A-A-A-B-A-D-A-E-G-H-I-L-M-A-N-A-R-C-W. Yeah, I can't even keep up with my brain. That's how fast it recalls. So if you rehearse it every once in a while, after about maybe 3 or 4 rehearsals, it'll stick forever, like it is for me now. Like right now, I'll never forget the presidents, the states and capitals, the countries and capitals, the Scrabble words, because I rehearsed it so many times with my meditation program. And it's really cool. And the meditation it's a dark room. You relax, do your breathing exercises, and then you just recall, like yourself. You said you memorize the countries and the capitals of states. Just pick one of them and you'd be surprised how that relaxes you. Mm-hmm. Now, Daniel could probably explain what's happening better than I can as a psychologist and a psychiatrist. I'm assuming that when you relax and you're reviewing this information, it actually puts me to sleep, mm-hmm. Daniel. What is that all about? It's almost like the old adage.
Well, it soothes you. But for the average person, working their brain actually grows their brain. Mm-hmm. And I'm certain, when you were 49 and really struggling with heart disease, your brain was probably not very good. Mm-hmm. But by exercising, increasing blood flow with new learning, you started to grow it. And I think you and I would both agree that everybody has this ability, to varying degrees, obviously. But once you start nurturing it, it grows. And that's what we saw. That's what you saw. And you talk about it in Ultimate Memory Magic, your new book. And you and I talked about it in our course at Amen University. But let's help people start at the beginning. If someone goes, I want a better memory, what are the first couple of things they can do today?
I would say the most important thing to have a better memory is to increase your focus, to work on your focus first, because without focus, there is no memory. And for example, like I myself, I was traveling with a gentleman named Tony Datino. He was the founder of the USA Memory Championships. He's older than I am. I'm 66, he's 70. We're in Orlando, and we went to Universal Studios to eat dinner. So we park, as he's parking the car, I'm on the phone with my wife, Lynn, oh my gosh, we're back down at Universal Studios. And because the last time we were there with the 4 kids, we had a great time. Tony's on the phone with his girlfriend, right? And he parked the car. We go and we ate dinner, walked around Universal Studios. We come out. Neither one of us knew where we parked the car. He said, well, you should know. You got the world's best memory. I go, well, you're the USA Memory Championship founder. And we're arguing for an hour. Why?
So I'm not the only one. I feel so much better.
Well, it's not your memory time. It's focus. You just, right. We weren't focused. I'm on the phone. He's on the phone. People with these cell phones, it's easy to lose focus.
This is important. I just want to reinforce this, because we have a lot of people calling in. They're really scared because they forget where they put something, or like this happens once or twice, they forget where they park their car and they freak out. So sometimes it is a matter of memory. But what I'm hearing you say, and you actually taught me this before, sometimes it's a matter of being present, being focused. So you have to figure out which one it is. Like, are you distracted because you got way too much going on and you're distracted by your devices? Or are you actually in trouble?
Well, and we're not working our memories as before because everything's on Google.
Right.
And many people don't even remember their own phone number.
Right.
Because you don't have to say it anymore. Once it's programmed, you don't get it. Where before I had 30 or 40 phone numbers in my head. Now I have yours and mine, and that's sort of it.
And when you and I went to school, we had to memorize mass amounts of information. We had to go to the library and pull books when we wanted to do papers. We had to, it was like learning a new language. Now people come, like really most of the stuff they need to know is just in their, it's like right here. So they don't have to memorize as much. They may have to memorize it for a test, regurgitate it, and then it's just right here. So it's a little bit different now.
Now in our course, Jim, we talk about you want to have good habits, good brain habits, because then that supports your ability to memorize, right? So exercising, that obviously helps you. Eating right, sleep. But then, okay, step number one is you have to pay attention. So our ADD people have more trouble, so get that treated. You have to pay attention. What's step number two?
Well, I like to call it, it's all about ESPN. Okay, E for exercise, not only your body, but your brain, which in my opinion is just as, if not more important. So E for exercise, brain and body. S for proper sleep. Sleep is so important. I can't emphasize it. I hear a lot of people, I can go with 3 hours of sleep a day. Oh yeah, well, it's going to catch up with you. And as Daniel knows, you got the lymphatic system that cleans out your brain. You got a lot of stuff going on when you have a nice sleep. It's very important. And plus, you wake up more energized and focused, and it actually is good for your long-term memory. P for ESPN is, in my opinion, the most important thing of all. Positivity, positive thinking, positive memory, hanging out with positive people. That is so important. Positivity is so important. And then the N, I'm sure you're really into this one, nutrition.
Yeah.
Nutrition
I like that.
is the
ESPN.
key. All those things really mean a lot. They really do. ESPN.
Yeah, it's good.
So,
I like that.
All right. So then step three, because people want the goods, because, on the Brain Warriors Way podcast, they hear about ESPN all the time.
Oh, really?
So you have to start somewhere. And I think you started with the presidents. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was actually fun watching you do that. And you memorized them like over 3 days.
Yeah.
And
no,
you were amazing.
It actually was a little less. It was actually not as hard as I thought. So I was reinforcing it over 3 days. But
how did you memorize?
Well, how did you do it? Yeah, I want to know.
So for me, one of the tips you gave me a whole bunch of different strategies. What I did is I picked furniture in my house. So I attached them to different, because for me, when I walk in my house, I know my house so well. So depending on where like different pieces of furniture, different rooms, different things like that. So that just for some reason that clicked in my head. This is like, whatever. So that's how I did it. It was just really easy for me to do. I know other people can use like body parts, whatever.
That's actually a very famous memory technique that was developed by the ancient Greeks to know like the furniture in your house, and then just make associations. Right. So associations is one of the big memory tools, correct?
Yep.
Right. So like the entrance is Washington. Duh. You know what I'm saying? And you just go like, because that's number one. It's when you first enter. So that's the easiest one. And then just from there, I would pick things that made sense to me. But so that's how I did it. I memorized it really quickly and it was great. But I'm thinking that even for someone with ADD, this is a really good thing, because what do you need when you have ADD? You need focus. So this helps you it's fun and it helps you focus.
And it gives you confidence.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons you feel good when you do it is because your confidence grows. Yeah. And as your confidence grows, it relaxes people. Mm-hmm. They're not as stressed when their confidence grows.
And your self-esteem and builds up. It's like, hey, and what I've discovered from focus, we talked about in the master memory course, focus with the deck of cards, but since then, I'm doing things with focusing. Like if I'm driving down the street and I see a stop sign and I read signs as I'm driving, like stop. To me, instead of seeing stop, I quickly translate it into numbers. 9056. 9 because the S is the 19th letter in the alphabet. I always drop off the first digit. T is the 20th letter in the alphabet. I drop off the 2, and so it's a 0. O is the 15th, and I look at the 5, and then P is 16th. And this is what I do. And what it does is it trains your focus. It trains you to focus. Just like here, Dr. Amen. Amen would be 1354. It's like really cool. Daniel would be 414952. See, I have to focus.
So that makes you think.
So, yeah, it does. It does. It really, that's something I just came up with, and it's really working. And I've been telling the Wounded Warriors about doing this, or even something as simple as just reciting the alphabet backwards.
Yeah.
You have to focus, like, hey, it's Z, Y, you know what I mean? Anything that gets that noggin to think and focus is good for you.
It also clears your mind from whatever you were thinking about previously when you have to do that. It's like a new exercise. It's like if I was thinking about something negative or something, really intense, and I do an exercise like that, it sort of lets go of what you were
exactly. And that's
so when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about your work with Wounded Warriors. We're with Jim Carroll, the author of a new book, which I wrote the foreword for, Ultimate Memory Magic. It's available now nationwide on Amazon. I was in a Barnes & Noble last week, and I texted you a picture in Newport Beach. Cool. He is also has a course on Amen University. If you go to amenuniversity.com, Jim Carroll's Memory Master Course, he and I did it together where we talk all about these techniques in great detail. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back, everyone. We're with our good friend, Jim Carroll. We're so excited to have him on the podcast. He has a new book, Ultimate Memory Magic. He and I together have a course on Amen University, Jim Carroll's Memory Master Course. We're giving you tips and tools to have a better memory. But before we get back to that, and we have so much more to talk about, Jim, talk to our listeners about your work with Wounded Warriors. What do you do with them? When did that start? I know this is a very important part of your life.
Well, it all started back, maybe Oprah was on, when the Oprah show was on, she made an appearance at Walter Reed, and my wife watched the show. She goes, wow. She goes, that's what you should do. You should go down to Walter Reed. So I'm like, Lynn, you just can't call Walter Reed, hey, I'm Jim Carroll. I want to come back. And I couldn't do it. It's all connections and things. So I'm at a poker tournament. And one of my loves is playing poker because that's the only thing I'm not banned from.
Because you can count cards. Of course it is.
But you can read people too. So I'm at the celebrity poker tournament. I think it was the Mark Wahlberg's foundation. And here's Montel Williams. He comes up to me and he goes, hey, he's wondering why I have this big crowd around me. And then the next day he says, hey, how would you like to go down to Walter Reed? He was the first one to take me to Walter Reed. But then after that, the cat was out of the bag because then I got to know Elaine Rogers. She's the president and CEO of USO Metro. And she started bringing me down every month. And I would teach these classes, which I now call cognitive intelligence, where I would not only show tricks, but I would help the warriors with their memory and stuff like that. So then one day, this one boy, his name's Brett. He goes, Mr. Carroll, could I take your course? I said, of course you can, Brett. And I go, why are you even asking? He goes, well, my doctor told me there's no hope for my memory. First of all, what ESPN, positive thinking, that's to never tell somebody anything dire like that. I said, no, you can take my course. I didn't tell Brett that. He takes my course. I swear, I was so proud of this kid. The very first day, 1 hour and 15-minute course, he knew the first 13 states of the Union. That is amazing. You can't tell me this kid doesn't have a good memory. So what I did as a reward was I taught him our card thing that's in Jim Carroll's Memory Master course, where you have a deck of cards, you shuffle them up, you remove one, and the person has 1 minute to look through the deck and to determine what card is missing. 44 seconds later, I had a timer. Brett hits the timer at 44 seconds, not 1 minute, and goes, Mr. Carroll, that card's a 2 of heart. I turn it over, it's a 2 of heart. I give him a big hug. That's what drives me, this kind of stuff, and that's why I started doing the stuff every month down with Elaine Rogers and Walter Reed. And then I got to know a couple of other people, and before you know it, I'm doing tours. And now I did 17 military bases in the last 2 months.
Wow.
It's insane. And now 2020 is going to be bizarre. So yeah, that's my passion. My passion is to help the folks that protect us and keep us safe. And not only the current ones, but the veterans, and especially the disabled veterans with invisible wounds, which some people call PTSD, traumatic brain injury. I call it invisible wounds now. And that's what I'm all about. I just want to, look, if I could help one person, how do you think about that?
So we're going to add another P to your ESPN. So positivity, but also passion. Because your passion drives you to be better every day. And so what are some of the other things you teach the wounded warriors? Let's get back to our listener, because they're like, I want a better memory. I want a better memory. So buy Ultimate Memory Magic, but we want to give them some tools.
So I have really quickly, I have a question about some of our people who, your book, Memory Rescue. We have a lot of people who listen who are headed to the dark place, that are scared. This is the question I have. And I like what you're saying about positivity, and you always want to go to the hopeful place. But some of these people are thinking it's too late for them. And is it too late? Will this kind of work? Will working their brain this way, will it actually help them get better?
Jim, you have stories.
In my opinion, yes.
You have stories.
No. I have tons of stories with people that it did help. I mean, this one lady, she was pushing 70. She was about to turn 70. She had stage 4 cancer. You talk about being the dark days, all right? And I don't want to get into details, but she read this like you did with the states, memorizing the states and capitals, and as they were put into the Union, like 1 Delaware, 2 Pennsylvania, 3 New Jersey, 4 Georgia, et cetera. And I come to her home, and there's a bunch of people around, and she's going, Jim, give me a number. I go, 23, and she goes, Maine, the capital's Augusta. I'm like, get out of here. I was so proud of her. She had all the states. I gave her a big hug, not knowing 6 weeks before that, she was in the bed with stage 4 cancer, about to give up. So no, there's something here. There's something here. There's positive hope. As long as there's hope, as long as there's passion, as long as you're positive, I'll put the money on that anytime.
I agree with you. Now, from a scientific standpoint, if someone's suffering with their memory, will working their brain like this help to improve it in any way?
Well, there's a whole chapter on Jim's work in Memory Rescue. So yes, I mean, if you want to keep your brain healthy, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind: blood flow, aging, inflammation, and so on. But you also have to work your brain. And Will Rogers said it a long time ago, which is the brain is like a muscle. The more you work it, the more you can work it. And that's why I love Jim's story, because he's 49, he's got heart disease, he gets on a bicycle, and he starts working his memory. And then over time, we're 17 years later, he's a world expert on memory.
Awesome.
And I didn't even have any intention of being this. I mean, I just wanted to keep from being bored on the bike. That's why I know this works. It really worked. And I think it can work for everybody. I believe everybody out there has the ability to improve their brain. And in my opinion, in improving your brain, it improves your whole wellness and your health. I really truly believe that now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just my heart condition. I mean, I improved my knee problems, my back problem. I was suffering from severe back problems, especially working in a steel mill all my, in the beginning of my life. And now I have these back problems settling in, and boom, now they're gone.
Well, what's good for your brain is good for your heart, is good for your knees, is good for. So when you're taking care of yourself,
yeah. Well, nutrition. Look at nutrition's a big part.
It's all part of it. You're ESPN.
Yeah. Yep.
So one more strategy for this podcast: if someone goes, "Help me have a better memory," what else would you say? And then in the next podcast, we'll talk about the mental matrix a bit.
Well, here's one that I don't even know if I told you about yet. It's I have this thing now where if people give me a list of things that I have to remember, like maybe items from a grocery store or just words at random, we know the average person can only remember like 7 bits of information. I can double that just by telling a story. Like, for example, say I give you the word cinder block. I just give you, I'll double it, 14 words at random. Cinder block, toe, a bear, a potato, a swimming pool, a taxi cab, a priest, a spaghetti, ping pong balls, which Daniel can relate to very well, a butterfly, a can of Coke, a table, and a triangle. 13 words I just gave you. I can tell a story right now that every one of the listeners, probably 90% of them, would remember all 13 of those words. Here, this morning when I was leaving to go to the store because I knew I had this podcast, I'm backing up my car. Oh, by the way, we'll throw car in. Car will be the first word. That'll make it 14 words. So I'm backing up my car, and all of a sudden I hear this thump. I hit into a cinder block. I'm like, who put a cinder block in behind my car? And I look back, and it fell on a bear's toe. I'm like, what's a bear doing in my yard? The bear's eating a potato. Like, come on, that's really, see, the more outrageous you make the story easier. So the bear's eating a potato. He looks at me and he throws it at me. And up in upstate New York right now, people have their pools drained. So he goes in my neighbor's pool, and I look, and there's a taxi cab in the bottom of a swimming pool. What's this cab doing down there? So I go to the edge of the pool, and in the back of the cab, in the back seat, is a priest. And he's eating spaghetti, but he's not eating spaghetti and meatballs. He's eating spaghetti and ping pong balls. So he rolls the window down. He looks at me. He has a ping pong ball in his mouth, and he goes, he spits it out. It turns into a beautiful butterfly. The butterfly lands right aside of me on a can of Coke, which was sitting on a table shaped like a triangle. Now, just from telling that story, you probably would remember all 14 words. I backed my car out of the garage. What did I hit?
A cinder block.
Cinder block.
The bear, toe, potato.
Bear's toe, eating a potato. He threw it at me in a plate. See, that's what I do. It's just passion, like you said, making up stories, using your brain and focusing. If you don't focus on the story I just told you, you wouldn't remember the 14 words. But if you were focused, when I do this at military bases, I have 1,000 people shouting out all the items when I'm done. That's what it's all about to me.
So it's working it, making it visual, making it a little crazy. The more crazy you make it, the more likely you are to remember.
Yeah, that instantly my brain went to.
We're going to come back and we're going to talk about the mental matrix and more with Jim Carroll, author of Ultimate Memory Magic. You can also go to amenuniversity.com and sign up for Jim Carroll's Memory Master Course, where we go over all these techniques in great detail. Stay with us.
Welcome back. We are still here with our friend Jim Carroll talking about memory magic, and we're having so much fun. You just told a story, and I actually can still remember the words because of the outrageous story you told. So that's great. That was a great tip for listeners. If you have to remember a list of words, come up with an outrageous story, and it will really help you to remember them. I love that tip. So thanks, Jim, for that. Welcome back. So we're talking about memory magic.
Well, and you have something called the mental matrix.
Right.
Can you talk to our viewers and listeners about that?
Okay. Now that's going back to the podcast, the first podcast, where when I was riding that bike and I had all these cards memorized in my head and I wanted to memorize more information. So I had to come up with what I call an anchor system. Now, at the time, there was someone out there, I forget who it was. I noticed there was an anchor system called the sun system. Like the words would rhyme with the numbers, like 1 is a sun, 2 is a shoe, 3 is a tree, 4 is a door, 5 is a hat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then what you do is if you have those words memorized and somebody names a word like cue stick, I'm sitting in my basement, so there's a cue stick over there. I would say, like, I would put that at, say you want to put it at number 1. Well, 1 is the sun. So I visualize pointing the cue stick at the sun, and the sun's a giant pool ball or something like that. 2 is a shoe. And this is the system that was available. And I thought, well, that's cool, but I have to memorize 52 cards. And I want to put this to a better system, so I need more words. So I developed this thing with these celebrities, where I memorized the top 100 celebrities at that time in People magazine. And I put them in a numerical order from 1 to 100. Like just for an example, we'll use 1 is George Washington. I put him at 1 because Washington was the first president. Therefore, it was easy to remember. Washington would be at number 1. Brad Pitt, I would put at 2. B for Brad, second letter of the alphabet. Brad Pitt, 2 syllables, 2 T's in Pitt. Hey, Brad Pitt, perfect fit for number 2. Number 3 would be Tom Cruise. I would visualize Tom Cruise, number 3, because there's 3 letters in Tom, T-O-M, 3 letters, and then Cruise begins with a C, the 3rd letter. So therefore, Tom Cruise was number 3, and George Foreman was number 4. We'll just use that for now, just to show you. So I would continue, obviously, for up to 100, but just for the sake of time. So Denzel Washington was number 1, Brad Pitt number 2, Tom Cruise number 3, George Foreman number 4. Now, if you'd remember that, you could easily attach information to it. Like, say you wanted to memorize the first 4 states of the Union. Well, the first state of the Union is Delaware. Therefore, if you know Denzel Washington is number 1, just visualize Washington crossing the Delaware, but not George Washington. We're going to make it funny again. There's Denzel Washington with the George Washington hat on crossing the Delaware. And Denzel Washington was the first president, right? Brad Pitt is number 2. Guess what the second state of the Union is? Pennsylvania. Therefore, if you remember Brad Pitt, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, you'd remember 2 is Pennsylvania. 3, Tom Cruise. Well, I live in the Northeast. You guys are West Coasters. In the Northeast, our big vacation resort is New Jersey Shore when I was growing up. So I visualized Tom Cruise cruising the shoreline, Atlantic City, down to Wildwood, down to Cape May. So therefore, every time you think of Tom Cruise, you remember cruising the Jersey Shore. Therefore, Jersey is 3. And then the 4th state of the Union, believe it or not, is Georgia. So if you remember George Foreman, you would remember Georgia. So now watch. Now, if you remember the second state of the Union is Brad Pitt, the second celebrity is Brad Pitt, what's the state, Tana?
Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh,
yeah.
Pennsylvania.
The first one, what's Denzel Washington, what river, what's the
Delaware.
State there? Yeah. Tom Cruise cruising where?
The Atlantic, so that's
Jersey.
right, New Jersey.
Shoreline,
yeah.
Jersey. And the 4th state, George Foreman, Georgia.
Right.
And I would continue all the way to 100. And then it wouldn't only be this information, okay? It would be massive amounts of information, countries, capitals. So much information I would put these to. Like I did a show for a bunch of cardiac surgeons, and I had to memorize their names and their birth dates because I wanted to walk up to the people. And so like the one guy, Dr. Schwartz, I put him at number 17 on my list because my celebrity is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So therefore, Dr. Schwartz was 17 on a list, and I remember his birth. And this is what I do. I call it the mental matrix.
That makes sense.
That mental matrix today, now it used to be 1 to 100. Now it's 1 to 10,000
Oh my gosh.
movies. And the information going out this way is 272 things or more for each one of those numbers.
Whoa.
That's why I call it the mental matrix.
Yeah, so it's like
And I'm only
tree
just
branches.
beginning.
Yeah.
In the few minutes we have left, talk to us about some other things people will learn in ultimate memory magic.
I called it ultimate memory magic But the book memory is just a part of the book. The book it's really about ultimate brain health. It's about a healthy brain, developing a healthy mind, not giving up. It gets it dabbles into cognitive intelligence, the word I brought up before, where we didn't even touch on that, the ability to read people. And how important is that for somebody? And no matter what you do for a living, whether you're especially a policeman or a doctor, to be able to read that person. Like, think about it, Daniel. If somebody walks in your office, isn't it important to be able to read that person when they come in? And I'm sure you do it very well. And that's what the book's about. It's not just about memory. It's about the whole scope of mental health, brain health, from the eyes of a guy that worked in a steel mill, not from the eyes of a guy that is well trained in PhDs. You know what I mean? And that's what's really cool about this. It's what do I see? What did I stumble upon here? It's starting to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And this book can help other people see this. I mean, in other words, you don't have to be an educated person to look at this book and get something out of it. I mean, I try to keep it down. You know what I mean by that, Daniel? It's like really powerful. It's just powerful.
I could see where this would be
that's
really.
why I love the book so much, because you make it super easy to understand.
Yeah,
where a lot of doctors write above people's level, and people just get confused, so they don't do anything. Your book is very practical, actionable, as is our course, which I'm pretty excited about.
I could see where this would be really helpful to students. This would have been really helpful to me in nursing school, probably helpful to you in medical school.
Oh, no question. I mean, why do we torture children?
Right. It's just
where
crazy.
We don't
could
teach
help
them how to learn.
And how to have fun.
And how to have fun with it. It should be required for anyone who has to learn anything.
And that's the key to learning is that you have to have fun. You have to be inspired. You have to want to do it. Like I have my grandkids. I have 4 grandkids. I have them competing against it. They're 9, 8, 7, and 3, and they compete with each other and name that tune.
Oh, that's
like,
so
hey,
great.
whoever names the tune first gets $1 from the dollar store later. And I play these things. I play these songs, not knowing my 3-year-old grandson was listening, and he joined the game. Like, you hear this, what's that thing with Hard Day's Night, that riff they play? All of a sudden I hear Hard Day's Night, the Beatles. Like, what? You're not even knowing he was
so
listening.
cute.
So it's amazing. And it don't matter if you're 3 or 93, you can learn and you can improve your brain.
That's so great.
That's what I want to do. If I could touch one person every day, hey, I did my job.
It's wonderful.
Well, we're rooting for your success. And the new book is called Ultimate Memory Magic. Our course is Jim Carroll's Memory Master course. There's so much you can do to improve your brain and your mind. And we're so grateful to see you again. We look forward to whenever you come out next.
It's a pleasure seeing both of you. Thank you for having me. I mean, you guys, I miss you so much. I can't wait to
Thanks,
see you guys
Jim.
again soon.
That was really great. Thank you.
All right, my friend. Take care.
If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're considering coming to Amen Clinics or trying some of the brain healthy supplements from BrainMD, you can use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com, or a 10% discount on all supplements at brainmdhealth.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.